Okay, good. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today is June 28th, 2018, and we are present for the first day of the 2 days Acupuncture Board meeting. The meeting is taking place in the Tower Room, Larry Hotel, San Diego, 950 Hotel Circle North, San Diego, California, 92108. This meeting is being webcast, and the time is now 9:30 a.m. Mark, please perform roll call to establish a quorum.
Okay, Dr. Amy Matecki.
Present.
Kitman Shan.
Present.
John Harabedian.
Here.
Ruben Osorio.
Present.
4-0, we have a quorum with one licensed member.
Thank you, Mark. I have nothing to add for currently. Now let's move to the agenda. Item 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. No? Seeing no public comments? So the board will move to the agenda item number 4. Please welcome Judge Abraham Levy.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm opening the record. First, we have 2 matters. One is a petition for reinstatement filed by Byung Chang Kim, aka Brian Kim. And the next matter that will be heard is a petition for early termination of probation brought by Kyung Kim. We're going to hear Mr. Brian Kim's matter first. And let me just say a couple things about how we're going to proceed here today for the benefit of new members of the board. But before we start anything, let me swear in an interpreter for Mr. Brian Kim. Ma'am, you are a certified interpreter?
Yes, Your Honor. Interpreter name is Chanson Nishimura, California State Certified Court Interpreter, ID number 301033. I have an awesome file with the court.
And can you just spell your name for our court reporter?
Your Honor, can I just give my card?
Yes,
because
that's
it's
fine.
very long, so it's easier for the court reporter.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you. She'll pick that up from you at some point as she's nodding here. So I'm going to swear you in now. Please raise your right hand, man. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury to the state of California the testimony, or excuse me, that you will interpret from the Korean to English and from English to Korean completely and accurately without adding or subtracting anything?
I do.
And please, again, just repeat your
Honor,
certification number. I'm sorry.
Certification number 301033. I need to pick up my eyeglass.
Oh, that's fine. Sure. And so, ma'am, I'm going to ask that you provide a simultaneous translation for Mr. Kim of the matter here today.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm just going to, for the benefit of the new members, set out how we're going to proceed here today. First of all, like I said, there's 2 petitions. One is a petition for reinstatement brought by Mr. Kim, and the second is a petition for early termination of probation brought by Kyung Kim. We're going to hear the petition for reinstatement first, brought by Mr. Kim. The way we'll proceed is we're going to first go through the proposed exhibits that the Attorney General, representing the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Yun, who's right over there nodding, prepared, and thank you for this, sir, with pre-marked exhibits 1 through 14. And I'm going to ask if the parties have any objection. I assume this is a joint submission by the parties because this reflects Mr. Kim's, documents in support of his petition. So with that, we'll go through the exhibits, and admit the exhibits so that the board can consider the documents in the exhibits as evidence. Until something is admitted, it can't be considered as evidence. And then I'm going to swear in Mr. Kim so that what he says is taken under oath. I assume Mr. Kim wishes to testify in this matter as far as why he wants to be reinstated. And is that correct, sir? Do you wish to testify? Is that correct, Mr. Kim?
Yes.
Thank you. And then I'll turn the matter over to Mr. Yun to ask any questions that he may have of Mr. Kim, and then the parties will have the opportunity to make closing statements. The statements will reflect the AG's position in this matter regarding reinstatement, as well as give Mr. Kim the opportunity to argue why his petition should be reinstated. I'll allow the parties to make brief opening statements. They don't have to, summarizing their respective positions. Again, Mr. Kim will be testifying, so his statements will probably be his statements on why he wants to be reinstated will be probably repeated in the course of his testimony, but basically allow the parties to make statements as far as why they believe reinstatement is appropriate or why what the AG's position is. Do any of the members have any questions about how we're going to proceed here with this matter? Okay. So at this point, Mr. Kim, Mr. Yun, do you have any questions about how we're going to proceed?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
No, Your Honor.
Oh, thank you. Not thank you for not having any questions, just thank you for your response. With that, I'm going to formally open the record in Mr. Kim's matter. We're on the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement. In the matter, filed by Byun Chan Kim, a.k.a. Brian Kim, OAH case number 2017-06-0431. Today is June 28th, 2018, and we are in San Diego, California, before the California Acupuncture Board. My name is Abraham Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings of the State of California, and I'll be presiding over this matter and ruling on any evidentiary issues that may arise. At the close of the parties' presentation of their cases, I will close the record absent any objection, deem the matter submitted, and the Acupuncture Board will issue a decision, and the parties will receive that decision in the mail. There will not be a decision issued today. So unless I'll just repeat what was said before we kind of formally open the record, and that is that the interpreter has been sworn, or I'll just note that the interpreter has been sworn, and I gave a brief summary of how we're going to be proceeding in this matter for the benefit of new members of the board. I note, like I said before we formally open the record, that I have a set of a binder of materials pre-marked 1 through 14. So I'm going to just at this point ask, and I'll just ask Mr. Yun, is this, and Mr. Kim, are you offering this binder of materials jointly for purposes of the evidence in this matter?
That's correct, Your Honor. However, we'd like to go over the admissibility of each exhibit as we proceed in this matter.
Well, we're going to go through them now. I don't think there's a dispute as far as the exhibit. This is Mr. Kim's petition, so why don't we go through these now? If there's any disputes, then we'll address that in the course of Mr. Kim's testimony, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
So we have pre-marked exhibits 1 through 14. And so both parties are offering these, but I'll give them, is that correct, Mr. Kim? You're offering these exhibits along with Mr. Yun? Mr. Yun?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, I believe there are some documents that have authors who may not be present here today. I'm not,
We'll offer, and we'll see if there's any, if either party can make an objection. I mean, if they're jointly offered, then, you know, parties may, probably not, the party, Mr. Kim's probably not going to object, but we'll see if he has any objection. Mr. Kim, you can make any objection you want to what the exhibits are here, until, like I said before we formally got on the record, until some documents are admitted as evidence, the board can't consider them for purposes of the petition or for purposes of why the petition should not be issued. So this is a step we need to go through before we can kind of proceed in this matter. So, so I just want to make sure Mr. Kim understands that he can object to the documents being admitted. This is an administrative proceeding, so it's not always necessary that a party be present in order to admit a document. But if there's no objection, then there's no objection. So why don't we go through the exhibits, beginning with Exhibit 1, which is the stipulation and amended accusation. And Mr. Yun, are you offering this at this time?
yes, Your Honor.
I'm going to mark this as Exhibit 1. Again, I'll just note that this is being offered jointly by the parties, but I'll give Mr. Kim the opportunity to object to Exhibit 1. Do you object to Exhibit 1, sir?
No objection.
No objection.
Hand my, so that she
Yeah,
has
you,
my-
you can stand up, walk around without my permission anytime you want. So, Mr. Kim, do you have any objection to Exhibit 2?
No objection.
Exhibit 2 is admitted. Exhibit 3 is the notice of hearing in this matter. Mr. Yun, are you offering this, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection to Exhibit 3? There was kind of a,
No objection.
there was a number of, the scheduling of this matter was somewhat complicated, but everybody's here today. So Exhibit 3 is admitted. Exhibit 4 is the certificate of licensure. And Mr. Yun, I'm assuming, is offering this with, again, I'll give Mr. Kim the opportunity to object if he wishes.
No objection.
Okay, Exhibit 4 is admitted. Exhibit 5, Mr. Yun, you're offering this as well with Mr. Yun, with Mr. Kim, excuse me. Any, is that correct, sir? Exhibit 5?
No objection.
Yes, Your Honor, as long as Mr. Kim can authenticate the letter that he,
It's his petition, he's not objecting to it, so it's admitted. So Exhibit 5 is admitted. Exhibit 6 is the criminal case documents. And Mr. Yun, you're offering this too?
yes, Your Honor, this is a certified court document.
And any objection to Exhibit 6, sir?
No objection.
No objection. Exhibit 6 is admitted. Exhibit 7 is a psychological report on petitioner. Mr. Yun, you're offering this?
No, Your Honor, we are objecting to admissibility of this document. There isn't a person present to authenticate this document. This is a purported psychological report done by a third party who I do not believe is present here today.
Let me modify what I said previously, which is that, all the documents were being admitted jointly. That's incorrect with regard to Exhibit 7. I'll give Mr. Kim the opportunity to offer this document then as Exhibit 7. Mr. Kim, do you wish to offer this? document, the
이거를
report?
이 서류를 갖다 여기다가 제공하고 싶으세요? 검사 측에서는 제공하고 싶지 않다고 그랬거든요. Yes, I'd like to offer that document.
I'm going to sustain the objection in part, overrule it in part. The report is admitted as at Exhibit 7 is admitted as administrative hearsay, subject to a motion to strike filed by or made by Mr. Yun, pending on Mr. Kim's testimony. And I'm just going to, Mr. Kim, I'm going to assume is going to address the reasons why he saw this psychologist and the treatment he underwent. So with that understanding, Exhibit 7 is admitted as administrative hearsay only. Exhibit 8, I'm assuming, Mr. Young, you're not offering this? That Mr. Kim's offering this? This is a continuing education training certificate?
Subject to Mr. Kim's authentication, which I presume he will provide.
Well, let's just do this. Mr. Kim, are you offering this? Exhibit 8, the continuing education training
Education
certificate?
training. 이거 이제 여기다 제공하시는 거 맞죠? Yes, Your Honor. Offered.
Exhibit 8 is admitted. I'm overruling the objection.
받아들여졌어요. 2년 저 검사.
I'm looking through the documents here, and they have all the indicia of authenticity of continuing education documents, and Mr. Yun will have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Kim regarding his continuing education. So Exhibit 8 is admitted. Exhibit 9 is a ethics course certificate. And I'm just going to ask Mr. Kim if he's offering this document.
이것도 여기다 오퍼하시는 거 맞죠? Correct, Your Honor.
And do you have any objection, Mr. Young?
No, Your Honor.
No objection. Exhibit 9, excuse me, is admitted. Exhibit 10
이거는 10번.
is live scan service. That's how it's cataloged, but it's basically a request for live scan service. Mr. Yun, are you offering this?
I have no objection.
Okay, so let me just back up. Mr. Kim, are you offering this? Live scan service?
Yes.
No objection by Mr. Yun. Exhibit 10 is admitted. Exhibit 11,
21번.
Mr. Kim is offering this.
Mr. 김이 이것도 이제
I'm assuming, is that correct, Mr. Kim?
맞죠? Correct.
Any objection, Mr. Yun?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know if the author of this letter will be present here to authenticate the document. So with that, I object to the, based on hearsay.
Objections overruled. Exhibit 11 is admitted, in part overruled. Exhibit 11 is admitted as administrative hearsay.
다 받아들여졌어요. 증거물로.
Exhibit 12 is another letter of recommendation. Same objection now.
똑같은 이유를
Mr.
Yes,
Yun?
Your Honor, admin hearsay.
And Mr. Kim, you're offering this second letter, Exhibit 12?
Correct, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled. Exhibit 12 is admitted as administrative hearsay.
다 여기로 이제 인사는 히어세이라고 전문이라고 이를 제기.
And Exhibit 13 is a name change and naturalization document. Mr. Kim, I'm assuming is offering this. Is that correct, Mr. Kim?
Correct.
And any objection, Mr. Yun?
Objection, Your Honor.
No objection. Exhibit 13 is admitted. Exhibit 14 is, the final document is an additional continuing education training certificate. Mr. Kim is offering this.
오버하는 거 맞죠? Correct.
Objection.
No, Your Honor.
No objection. Exhibit 14 is admitted. So I don't believe there's any other documents. Is that correct? Do you have any other documents, Mr. Kim, you wish to offer?
제출하는 거 없죠? 아니 여기 그 여기 반 또 다른 서류 가져온 거 있어요?
예.
There is more document I brought,
Well,
Continue education.
which is continuing education certificate.
I've never received those before.
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, you were provided with an instruction of how this matter would proceed. This matter's been pending for quite a while, and so presenting more documents, you can do that. But Mr. Yun already indicated he hasn't received them. I'm going to make what you give me part of the record, but I don't have the means to make copies of them. I'm not in my office. We're at this hotel in San Diego. So how many letters are you offering? Do you wish to make part of the record, sir? I see a large packet. That's why I'm making this comment. And Mr. Yun is going to need to look at these and make any objections he wishes to them.
이거를 저 검사 측에서 보고 이의를 제기할 수 있습니다라고. So what should I do, Your Honor?
Well, I can't give you advice on
내가
this.
이걸 충고를 하시는
And all I can tell you is if you show, you know, you were advised how this matter would proceed. There was a letter sent to you about how the hearing would proceed, and one of the instructions is about making sure that documents you bring are presented to the DAG before the hearing. So bringing in documents at this time presents a practical problem. It's not an insurmountable problem, but it's one that why don't you show Mr. Yun, first of all, the documents you wish to offer, and Mr. Yun will then summarize for me how many documents there are. Just give me a brief idea, Mr. Yun, what documents he's offering, and how many letters, and all that sort of thing. And I just am mentioning the number because I see a number of documents in front of you, sir.
He already made a copy, 10 copies.
Okay, well, very, very good then.
Yeah, this is same. This is same. This is one.
Okay, and then so there are 10
Court reporter's
copies.
looking at me baffled because she's wondering if she needs to take down the dialogue, and no, you don't, but I'm gonna just, if you guys need to go, if you, do you have a copy for me, Mr. Kim?
Yes, yes, I made 10 copies.
Okay. Why don't you, well, I appreciate that, sir, and why don't you hand me what you want me to see, just give me copies. And I guess what I'm gonna need is the policy coordinator to kind of give the documents to the members.
Your Honor, I believe that what Mr. Kim has just indicated to me is that he has 2 separate sets of documents for each of which he made 10 copies. So I'm just going over them to make sure that these are identical copies before I provide them to you.
Well, that's fair. So why don't you go over those and see if they're identical copies? They look like certificates. They don't look like are these continuing education
이게
certificates?
continuing education 하신 거예요? Correct.
Mr. Yun is just taking a moment and going through the documents to make sure the copies are copies of the documents, the same documents. Now, while Mr. Yun's doing this, while I'm thinking about it, Mr. Kim, are you going to have anybody testify other than
오늘
you?
여기 본인 말고 다른 사람이 증언한 사람이 또 있습니까? 본인 케이스에서? No, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, going back on the record, I believe that.
Still on the record.
Oh, right.
Until you hear me say we're off the record, just to be on the safe side, so nobody says anything.
I believe that
stupid.
there are 2 groups of certificates that he provided. One packet seems to have about 4 pages. So these are 4 separate certificates in the first batch. And in the second batch, Mr. Kim has provided 5 certificates. And it appears that there are some identical copies that are here, so I can hand them out to the,
Mr. Johnson, he's helping us here.
Mr. Johnson,
So I can make sure you have a copy of what's going to be presented. You have your copy, Mr. Young?
yes, Your Honor.
사연 뒤에 저기 본인 카피도 있습니다, 판사님.
Mr. Johnson, the policy coordinator, is just handing out the documents to the individual members and to me. Okay. What I'm going to do is mark these next in order. There's two separately collated certificates of completion of education courses. I'm going to mark these as Exhibit 15.
Your Honor, if I may, before you do that, some of these are actually already part of Exhibit 14.
I'm sorry, could you just state your name for the record?
Yeah, I'm Board Member John Harabedian. One of the packets, which starts with understanding and treatment of diabetes.
Your Honor, I gave a wrong copy.
Oh, wait, which copies did you give us the wrong copies of?
뭐요?
다른
다른 거예요. 14번하고 다른 거. There is another copy which is different than Exhibit 14. This is the one I was gonna give.
I'm
This is
confused.
the new one, new document.
Why don't you show Mr. Yun, who's going to have to sort of sort some of this out. It's okay if we have documents that are duplicative. The duplicative,
이거는 14번하고 이제
but
겹치니까.
we'll just sort it out.
다시 이제
Your Honor, I believe one of the two batches that I had initially received, the ones whose certificates occurred in 2017, I believe that is an identical copy of Exhibit 14, as Board Member Mr. Harabedian mentioned. And, but the second batch with certificates dated in 2018 are not in any of these exhibits that I prepared.
Okay.
And then this third batch that I just received from Mr. Kim is also not in any of these exhibits that I
이 안에 들어가
provided.
있지
I
않은
don't think I have the
것들이
third batch.
And I can
지금 세 번째
give it
거는
to-
없는
I'm
거
just speaking on behalf of
판사한테.
the board as well. The board members don't have that as well. So we're being handed this so-called third batch. What I've done
이제 준 거.
is take the 2017 certificates and I'm putting them at the front, and Mr. Kim can collect these. I'm not marking these documents.
다시 가져가도 돼요. 저건 여기 있는 거는.
So what I've done is, I have a second set I have that begins of certificates of completion, a number of documents starting in October 14, 2017. And then I have the 2018 certificates of completion. So I'm marking the 2018, I already marked it, pre-marked it as 15, and I'm marking the 2017 certificates of completion as 16. These are the documents you wish to Mark and make part of the record, sir? I'm holding up the two separately collated documents.
Yes, Your Honor.
So just if, for those of you following at home, it's 15 and 16, 15 being the 2018 certificates, 16 being the 2017 certificates. I've marked these, and you're offering these, sir?
Correct, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Yun? No objection, that 15 and 16 are admitted.
15하고 15하고 16이 받아들여졌습니다. 증거물로.
Any other documents, sir?
그 서류 가져온 거 이거 No, Your Honor.
I'll just note that the board members have the additional documents along with the that have been added to the exhibits that have been admitted. So we have exhibits 1 through 16 admitted as indicated, so with that, let me allow the parties to make opening statements, beginning with petitioner if he wishes, and AG if he wishes. Mr. Kim, do you wish to make a opening statement about why you're going to have the chance to testify? So it's not, and so we'll hear you on that. But do you wish to basically summarize why you believe you should be reinstated?
간단하게 오늘 왜 여기 이게 인스테이트 복귀하기를 원하는 오늘 여기 오신 거에 대해서 알겠어요. 이걸 신청하셨는지.
제 인생에 있어서 아큐펑처 리스트는 하고 띄워놓고 생각할 수가 없었고요.
First of all, I cannot think about my life not being an acupuncturist. I couldn't think, anything in my life without it.
미국에서 만 4년 동안 공부했고 중국에서 한 3년 동안 공부.
I studied about 4 years in America and also 3 years in China for that.
I think you're kind of going into what you're going to be testifying to. And really what an opening statement, the purpose of an opening statement is just, and I know it's tough because this is very important to you and it's very important to the members to hear what you have to say. You're going to have the chance to testify. And really this is just an opportunity to sort of set out in broad strokes why you believe your petition for reinstatement should be granted. So it's really a summary. You're going to have the chance to testify, and I'll put you under oath for that.
증언할 때 다 얘기하실 수가 있는 거고요. 지금은 이제 개정 진술하는 걸 간단하게.
아큐펑처 리스트로서 제 인생을 제가 잘못을 하고요. 제가 이제는 을 통해서 새로운
First of all, I admit my mistake that I made, but I really like to live as an acupuncturist as my new life. That's the reason I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Yun, do you wish to summarize what the AG's position is in this matter?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor, and the members of the Acupuncture Board. I wanted to formally introduce myself for those of you who have never met me. I am Deputy Attorney General Michael Yoon, and I'm here today for the respondent, the state of California. And we are here on a petition of reinstatement. The petitioner was licensed to practice acupuncture in 1995, and in June 1997, August 1997, March 1998, and in September 2000, undercover detectives and police officers from various law enforcement agencies found prostitution activities happening at Petitioner's 3 different clinics: Healing Acupuncture in Orange, California, Carson Acupressure in Lakewood, California, and Acu Med Clinic in Costa Mesa. An accusation and a first amended accusation were filed, and on August 2nd, 2001, Petitioner surrendered his license, admitting that the cause was sufficient to revoke his license. In 2011, he petitioned for reinstatement, and after a hearing before a quorum of the board on November 17, 2011, his petition was denied. We're here today to ask this board to deny his petition, and these are the summarized reasons. Petitioner is not rehabilitated because he does not take responsibility for his actions. Petitioner's misconduct of allowing his acupuncture facility and his license for prostitution is not accidental because it happened multiple times. The petitioner just stated that he admits his mistakes, but I ask the board members to pay attention during his testimony and my cross-examination of him to what extent he's admitting his mistakes, whether he's blaming others for the prostitution activities or himself, whether he is admitting the facts or denying his knowledge, because that is essential in determining whether there has been sufficient rehabilitation or not. Burden of proof of sufficient rehabilitation lies with the petitioner, and at the end of this hearing, I will stand up again, address this board, and ask you respectfully to deny the petitioner's petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yun. At this point, I'm going to swear Mr. Kim in. Kim, I'm assuming you wish to testify. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury of the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And why don't you state your name and tell the board members why you feel your petition for reinstatement should be granted.
그리고 상황을 얘기하시고 지금 여기서 신청하신 게 왜 승인이 돼야 돼? 설명을 해주시는데 박사가 생각해 주세요. 먼저.
병찬 킴,
병찬 김.
브라이언 킴으로 제가 개명을 했습니다.
Also AKA Brian Kim.
제가 2011년도 아까 그 디나이 했다고 했었는데요. 그때는 어떻게 해야 되는지도 모르고.
I just heard that that my petition on 2011 has been denied. At the time, I was not aware how to do the properly to submit the petition.
제가 충분한 준비 없이 신청을 했었고요.
So I was not well prepared and has been submitted.
그리고 뒤에 열심히 다시 또 하고 그리고
And since then, I really try my best for rehab,
그리고 continue education도 하고
as well as studying and attending continuing education course.
그리고 새로운 도로 환자를 어떻게 다뤄야 되는지에 대해서 공부를 많이 했습니다.
And I study a lot how to approach the patient in a kind of like a new approach.
그리고 아까 라이센스 관련해서 저 일어났던 사건들 몇 가지가 있는데요.
There was a several incidents in regards to my license.
그때는 제가 여기 없었고 중국에서 공부할 때였습니다.
When those incidents happened, I was not in here. I was in China studying.
근데 누군가가 내 라이센스를 카피를 해서 마음대로 사용을 하고 있었어요.
So those period, someone copied my license and used my license.
저는 그 당시에는 몰랐고
At the time, I did not know about that.
그 아큐펑처 보도에서 저한테 연락을 했다고 하는데 저는 여기 없어서 받지를 못했어요.
I was told that acupuncture board tried to contact me, but then I could not be contacted because I was not here.
그래서 1998년도에 돌아왔을 때 그때 제가 늦게 알았습니다.
So I got to aware of those incidents after I came back, which was in year 1998.
그래서 제가 어떻게 된 건지 몰라서 저도 나름대로 알아보고 조사를 해봤는데
So I do not know how that happened. So I tried to investigate what really happened.
그래서 제가 그때까지도 나도 모르는 사람이 내 라이센스를 걸어놓고 그 비즈니스를 하고 있었어요. 제 눈으로 확인을 했습니다.
So actually, I saw with my own eyes someone that I didn't even know used my license and conduct a business.
그게 전부였고요.
And that was all about regards to my license.
그래서 어쨌든 나의 그 관리 소홀과 나의 잘못으로 인한 걸 였고요.
Anyway, but then that was, I didn't maintain or manage my license well, so that was my mistake.
그래서 2001년도에 자진 그 서렌저 하고요.
So 2011, I surrendered my license voluntarily.
2001년도.
Correction, 2001, I surrendered my license.
그리고 뼈저리게 그 나의 삶을 반성하면서
So since then, I truly look into my life, and I regret that what has happened.
오늘 이 자리에 왔습니다.
That is the reason why I'm here today.
Anything else, sir, you wish to say?
추가적으로 할 얘기 있으십니까?
나중에 할 기회 있으면 또 하겠습니다. 나중에 또 할 기회 있으면.
If I have opportunity later, maybe I will add in my.
Okay, Mr. Yun? And then just so the members are clear, Mr. Young will ask questions, and then I'll give the members the opportunity to ask questions. I may have a question just for purposes of clarifying the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Kim, I want to draw your attention to exhibit number 1, if you could turn to the page in the binder. Page 1. Let's start there. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
It's the stipulated surrender of license, which you read and signed with your then attorney, correct?
Yes.
In fact, if we turn to page 5, AGO 000005, that's your signature and your attorney's signature, correct?
선생님 그 서명이고 선생님 변호사 서명 맞죠? Yes.
And if we go to AGO 3, that's the third page, under culpability, under paragraph 10, the last sentence of that paragraph stated, respondent agrees that cause exists for revocation and hereby surrenders his license, acupuncture license number AC 5207, for the board's formal acceptance, correct?
Yes.
And right before that, the two preceding sentences, it reads, respondent admits the truth of the third cause for discipline as alleged in first amended accusation. And respondent also admits that on September 25th, 1997, he applied for and thereafter received a business license from the city of Lakewood for Carson Acupuncture as the owner of an acupuncture facility. I read that correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go through in the same exhibit under first amended accusation, third cause for discipline. Which is on page AGO 15.
What page?
It says page 10 in the center, but it's AGO 0015. Permitting the unlawful use of an acupuncture license. See that?
Yes.
So you admit the truth of that cause of discipline, but you just told us earlier that you were not aware of who was conducting these businesses in which there were prostitution activities, correct?
당시에는 어떻게 해야 될지도 모르겠고 어떤 식으로 이거를 설명할 수가 없었어요.
At the time, I do not know what exactly I should do or like how to explain the situation.
그리고 이 1997년도
And then 1997 September
9월 25일 날
25th,
이게 레이구드
City of Lakewood.
그 칼슨 아큐펑처의 라이센스를 받았다고 그랬는데
You said, I received the acupuncture license, Carson acupuncture license.
제가 그때는 여기
At the time,
중국에 있었어요.
I was in China. Yes.
That wasn't my question. So
Let
me ask you this. You had an attorney who was representing you at the time you entered into this agreement for surrender, correct?
Yes.
His name was James Lee.
Yes.
And you went over this document with him, correct?
Yes.
Just to head you off at the pass a little bit, in case you're going to go into any discussions regarding attorney-client privilege, as you know. I mean, clearly there was an attorney in this matter, but you're touching on the issue of attorney-client privilege. He has a right to consult with an attorney, and one way or another, it's not something that can be used against him for consulting with an attorney, even if that attorney signed the document, so.
Understood, Your Honor. So looking at this document that you signed, I want to go to page AGO 002 under what's titled Advisement and Waivers. I'm reading paragraph number 5, which says, respondent has carefully read, fully discussed with counsel, and understands the charges and allegations in the accusation. Respondent also has carefully read, fully discussed with counsel, and understands the effects of this stipulated surrender of license and order. I read that correctly, right?
네, 맞습니다.
Yes, that is correct.
그때 그 당시 변호사가 저한테 했던 얘기는 일단 서렌더를 하면 금방 다시
Your Honor, if I may, I believe this, Mr. Kim is going into what his attorney told him, and I believe that goes into attorney-client privilege.
You're listening to him in,
I speak Korean.
okay, well, that's not something that, I appreciate your concern, no, I do, and I think, but the interpreter still has to interpret what she's saying for the record.
지금 검사 측에서 변호사하고
Appreciate what you're getting at.
판사님한테 얘기를 한국말 알아들으시. 그러니까 그거에 대해서
You could say what he said, ma'am.
얘기하셨.
I'm sorry, you need to translate what he said.
I already did, Your Honor, with this. I mean, with what he said.
I know, but I need to hear it. The record needs, the court reporter needs to take down what he said. I didn't hear you. Maybe what did he say as far as the attorney-client conversation?
Well, he said it in English, and I interpreted in Korean language to him.
So the judge is asking for you to translate what Mr. Kim told you
Oh, Mr.
before I interrupted.
Oh, Mr. Kim.
얘기하겠습니다.
Mr. Kim didn't. Yes. So, so I was told by the attorney at the time that was all he said before.
I know you're summarizing what Mr. Yun said, but you need to say it because you're the interpreter, not Mr. Yun.
Yes, Your Honor.
Say it. Say what he said. Say what Mr. Kim said.
Mr. Kim said, I was told by my attorney at the time. That was all he said.
Okay. So I appreciate that. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, Your Honor, I totally understand. He was about to respond, but then the Mr. Yoon started to talk, and that was all he said about like that. That's at the time my attorney was saying.
I got it. I appreciate it, but and it really I
Yes.
appreciate, but you got to take. You need to take down everything that's said here or report
Totally
everything.
understood, Your Honor.
And Mr. Yun, you're not here to kind of act as a kind of. You were trying to be helpful, so I do give you credit for that. But you're not to kind of act as an interpreter here. So anything that Mr. Kim says is going to needs to be made part of the record. So you were being helpful. So again, I don't mean to criticize you. So I'm sorry, sir. You could continue, Mr. Kim.
죄송한데 하여튼 계속 하세요. 계속 하셔도 돼요.
그때는 제가 어떻게 그 상황을 대처해야 될지도 몰랐고요.
At the time, I do not know how to act for those circumstances.
변호사가 하자는 대로 했었고요.
I just followed my attorney's advice.
그 voluntarily surrender하면 라이센스 금방 찾을 수 있다고.
I was told that if I voluntarily surrender my license, I will get back the license very soon.
변호사가 얘기했던 거예요.
That was told by my attorney.
그래서 제가 변호사 하자는 대로 사인을 했던 거예요.
I think, as to my recollection, that's the reason why I signed the document as attorney suggested.
어쨌든 내 인생의 가장 큰 실수였어.
Anyway, that was my biggest mistake I made in my life. And that's all.
Yes, Your Honor, just one moment. So, Mr. Kim, are you denying that you applied for and thereafter received a business license from City of Lakewood for Carson Acupuncture as the sole owner of the acupuncture facility?
I think interpreter need clarification. 잠깐만요. 그랬다는 것 같다는 게 본인이 이걸 하셨다는 게 그랬다는 건지 좀 정확하게 이게 어떤 건지
아닌 걸로.
아닌 걸
네,
이걸
제가
본인이
하지
안 하셨다고요?
하지 않은 걸로 기억이 됩니다. 지금 오래된
Okay, as to my recollection, I don't think I did. It was a long time ago, about like 20 years ago or so. So
25년.
So, going back to my question, you're denying that you admit
이거를 이제 인정하지 않는
that in 1997 you applied for and received license for Carson Acupuncture as the sole owner of the facility.
본인이 소울 오너 혼자서 그 소유주로 해서 그거를 이제 그 어플라이한 거에 대해서 부인하시는 게 맞습니까?
이거를 제가 사인하는 거를 부인을 하는 건가요?
어플라이한 거.
여기 보면 5번에 제 사인이 있습니다.
Are you referring that, if you look at the page 5, there is a signature section. Are you referring that I'm denying the signature, signed signature? Or?
여기 있는 것 자체를 제가 부정하고 이건 아니라고 얘기하지는 하고 싶진 않습니다.
I don't want to say all these things in the document. I don't want to deny that that was not, correct.
Well, you can't have it both ways, so let me
You
take
don't need
you.
to make the comments, sir. Just ask your questions.
So let me take you back to my specific question with regard to that one line.
물어보는 거 한 라인에 대해서 물어보는 거예요, 구체적으로. 그러니까 대답을 두 개로 다르게 하실 수가 없기 때문에 이제 그 한 라인에 대해서.
Under culpability, page AGO 003,
0003 3번 보세요. 잠깐만요.
paragraph 10,
3번. paragraph what?
10,
네, paragraph 여기 10.
Line
10번에
2.
나왔어요. line 2. 두 번째 라인에 보시면은
respondent also admits that on September 25, 1997, he applied for and thereafter received a business license from the city of Lakewood for Carson Acupuncture as the owner of an acupuncture facility.
아큐펑처의 그 장소의 소유주로서 그거를 신청하셨다. 요 라인에
That specific line, are you denying that?
이것에 대해서 부정하시는 겁니까? 아니면 이게 맞습니까? 그것만 물어보는 겁니다.
정확히 기억은 나지 않습니다.
I don't recall precisely.
What do you not recall?
기억 안 나시는 게 뭐가 기억이 안 나시나요?
제가 아니다라고 얘기를 하고 싶지만 제가 사인한 게 있기 때문에 아니다라고 얘기를 하지 못하겠습니다.
I like to answer as a no, but because I signed the document, I cannot say no.
So to understand that correctly, you want to say that you never admitted to the truth of that line, but because you signed this document, you can't say that, is what you just said.
진실을 말하고 싶지만 이 도큐ment 이 서류에 사인을 하셨기 때문에 이제 그 사인을 한 이유 때문에 받아들입니다. Yes.
Let's go to AGO page 0014.
0014 14.
These are some lengthy paragraphs, but in order for me to get to my question, I have to read this out loud so that the interpreter can read those to you.
Here's what I'm going to. Here, I'm going to instruct the interpreter just to read to Mr. Kim the paragraphs you want to ask him about. So which are the paragraphs, sir?
These are paragraphs K, L, M, N under Carson Acupressure prostitution activity.
Madam Interpreter, you'll read that to Mr. Kim?
이제 읽어보시면 되는데요. Special investigator sheriff
Excuse me, Madam Interpreter, is it going to take you, I'm not rushing you, but is it going to take a little time for you to interpret
I
for him?
interpret line by line as
So
you.
why don't we go off the record for 5 minutes? Would that work? And so
Oh,
you
that
can,
would be fine.
yeah, why don't we go off the record for 5 minutes? We'll take a break while you go through the paragraphs with Mr. Kim.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So
Thank
you don't
you.
feel like you're on the spot. Okay, we're off the record.
그래서 이제 이거는 저기 브레이크하면서
thank
제가 여기 읽어드려야 돼요.
Make sure there also is going to be a need for the interpreter at the 11 o'clock one. Is that
I
correct?
understand, Your Honor. I just need a 10-minute break between
Yeah, yeah.
so that I can rest a little bit.
You'll get that 10-minute break.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Appreciate you telling. I can understand that. You're working harder than anybody here, other than a court reporter. So we're back on the record after a break so that the interpreter can read the paragraphs Mr. Yun wanted to be read to Mr. Kim. So, Madam Interpreter, have you read those paragraphs to Mr. Kim?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Yun.
Thank you, Your Honor.
감사합니다, 판사님.
So let's talk about this Carson Acupressure and this investigation conducted by Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department on March 10, 1998. According to their investigation, as you just read, there was a female employee at this facility by the name of Toy Johnston, or AKA Young Shi Sun. Are you aware that this employee at this facility was providing sexual favor for exchange of money?
그것에 대해서 선생님께서 알고 계셨습니까?
전혀 몰랐습니다.
Not at all.
Are you the sole owner of Carson Acupressure, Lakewood, California?
레이크우드 캘리포니아에 있는 카슨 아큐펑처의 소울 오너니까 혼자서 소유주로 되어 있습니다. 혼자 소유하신 게 맞으십니까? 소유주입니까?
쉬는 시간에 제가 잠깐 너무 당황도 되고 긴장도 되고 그래서 와이프랑 같이 왔는데 제가 한번 물어봤어요. 어떻게 된 거냐고. 제가 듣기 위해서.
I came here with my wife. During a break time, I actually asked my wife because I was very nervous and I wanted to, get reminded. So I talked with my wife.
근데 기억을 더듬어 보니까
So as to my recollection,
제가 중국에 가면서 친구가 너무 도와달라고 그래서
as to my recollection, when I was about to go to China, one of my friends asked me to help 남자예요?
예.
Help him.
그래서 자기가 라이센스를 빌려주면 정말 지압만 하겠다. 지압소를 하나 차려서 아큐프레셔를 잘 해보겠다.
So I was told by my friend that if I lend him my license, he was gonna open up a acupuncture place facility and just to do the acupuncture and acupressure treatment.
근데 제가 중국 그래가지고 중국 갔을 때 제가 너무 잘못을 깨닫고 크루즈를 해야 되는데 제가 늦게 돌아오고 일이 너무 커져 버렸던 것 같습니다.
So when I went to China, then I should really be aware of my mistake and I should close the facility. But then I was the time wise it was kind of too late, and then that incident became a really big incident.
So are you stating that you gave your friend who is unlicensed to practice acupuncture your acupuncture license so that he can practice acupuncture in this facility?
친구가 도와달라고 그래서 그 당시에는 아무것도 몰라서
At the time, my friend asked me if I could help him, and I was not aware of those. 뭘 몰랐다.
너무 어떤 세계인지 그 세계가 그 아큐프레셔에서 어떤 일이 벌어지고 있는지를 제가 그때는 그 사정을 몰랐었습니다.
So at the time, I was kind of naive about what kind of a incident will happen in the acupressure industry.
근데 제가 그걸 알고 났을 때는 너무 늦었고요.
So after I realized what could happen, it was too late.
To
그래서
strike as non-responsive, the last sentence.
Overruled.
So let me take you back to my question. Are you just saying that you gave your acupuncture license to your friend who is not licensed in acupuncture to practice acupuncture with your license?
그분은 아큐펑처 라이센스가 없는 분이에요.
That person did not have acupuncture license.
그래서 뭘 도와주면 되겠냐고 물어봤더니 자기가 아큐프레셔를 하는데 라이센스가 필요하니까.
So I asked him what can I help him, and he said he's doing acupressure, but then in order to do the acupressure, he needs a license.
그때는 제가 너무 몰랐고 제가 너무 잘못했습니다.
So at the time, I didn't know very well, and I really made a big mistake.
You knew that he was not licensed.
네.
Yes.
So you just stated that you did not know very well about what goes on in this industry, and this was around March 10, 1998. So let's go back in time. I want to draw your attention to January 1997, more than a year before that incident, at which time you claim that you didn't understand very well what was going on in this industry. Did you own a facility called Healing Acupuncture?
적은 없습니다.
No, I was not the owner.
You were never listed on the application of Healing Acupuncture as the owner of the business.
누가 했을지는 모르지만 저는 한 적은 없습니다.
I don't know very well. Maybe somebody did, but not by myself.
So somebody else signed your name, gave your identifying information, and applied for its business license.
Mr. Yoon, can you just help me, for purpose of the record, what's your proffer for asking this question based on the discipline according to the amended accusation?
This is to show that Mr. Kim was aware of what he describes as the prostitution activities that occur in this in some of these acupuncture clinics.
Well, this isn't a deposition, right? And if it's not, if his discipline was based on what's in the amended accusation, as you just had the interpreter go through, now you're going outside of that, and I understand you're trying to make this point about his knowledge, but why do you need to go into that area? He's already said that he didn't know. He failed because he made a mistake because he didn't understand the law is applicable to being an licensed acupuncturist.
I understand that, Your Honor, but he's alleging that with regard to the event that took place in 1998. So I want to bring it to his attention that he actually came in contact with the police in 1997, more than a year ago, and was put on notice of some of these prostitution activities that were going on at his other clinics.
Okay, go ahead. But in terms of efficiency, though, I think you need to get more to your point. We do have another matter to address, and
Understood, Your Honor.
so
Thank you very much.
I get what you're getting at, but and it's part of the record as well. His conviction, which the AG offered, and it's been admitted, and so.
Be more efficient in my questions. Thank you. So are you denying that you were operating healing acupuncture in 1997 in which there was prostitution activity occurring?
몰랐습니다.
I do not know about that.
And are you saying you did not know about June 1997 activities and August 1997 activities?
여기에 있는 이 케이스에 그 기록된 자세한 것들은 제가 아는 게 아무도 없었습니다.
I don't have knowledge regards to the case that is recorded in this document.
When you say this document, are you referring to the first amended accusation?
This interpreter speaking, I couldn't hear your last sentence.
So when you say this document, are you referring to the first amended accusation?
첫 번째 그 수정된 그 혐의에 대해서 얘기하시면서.
이 아까 읽었던 부분도 그렇고요.
I have to interrupt you, though, Mr. Hold your answer to that. Again, he pled to that one specific he admitted culpability to that one cause for discipline, the third cause. You're going into the second cause for discipline. Is that correct, Mr. Yoon?
Yes, Your Honor.
And why are you doing that? The discipline wasn't based on the second cause for discipline. For whatever reason, as per the stipulation, he admitted the truth of the third cause for discipline. And he also admitted that he applied for a license that's set out in paragraph 10, and you addressed that issue with him. Why are we going into the second cause for discipline? For whatever reason, the complainant didn't seek to have discipline imposed on under the second cause for discipline.
That's true, Your Honor. However, the petitioner did affirmatively state during his testimony and cross-examination that he is now denying what he had previously admitted, which was that he was the sole owner of this third facility that's mentioned
Yeah,
And-
I'm gonna basically ask that you move past this question of the second cause for discipline. He's been disciplined for this third cause for discipline, and that's the basis for the petition for reinstatement. I'll let you finish up your questions on this issue, but why don't you move into another area if you wish to? Because for whatever reason, complainant didn't impose discipline, elected not to, or whatever issues may have arisen. There may have been evidentiary issues. And so if you're seeking to basically kind of re-enter that picture, that's really beyond the scope of this matter. So why don't you kind of, I'll let you finish up, and then you can move into another area if you wish.
Understood, Your Honor. Let's move on to the activities that you engaged in after revocation of your acupuncture license. And I want to draw your attention to year 2003. Were you running a business at that time?
기억이 잘 안 나는데 무슨 비즈니스?
I don't recall very well. What kind of business are you referring to?
A business at which you provided services to folks who were on a diet?
Yes.
What kind of services were you providing to your clients?
그 한방을 이용해서 그 약초를 이용해서 사람들 건강해지고 살빼기.
There was using Oriental herb so that people could lose weight.
So you were using Oriental medicine as an unlicensed person to provide these weight loss services to these clients?
Hold that thought before you answer. Give me a proffer on this. And your assertion is that it's an unlicensed activity. Do you have a basis for that? So give me a proffer first and tell me why you're going into this area.
Clearly, the conduct that he engages in after revocation is relevant in determining whether he will be safe if he is reinstated, and whether he is, I'm just laying the foundation, Your Honor, for his subsequent conviction that occurred.
Doesn't the conviction doesn't it say what it says?
On its face, it does not, Your Honor, but the underlying facts, I believe, are relevant because it is within a setting in which there was a level of health care that was provided, as was admitted by Petitioner.
Do you have a police report, investigative report?
There is no report. However, there is some factual reference to that incident by the Petitioner in his letter to the board in the petition for relief.
Why don't you reference that letter for the members, and then you can ask questions about that.
Yes, Your Honor.
The conviction is what it is. It's a conviction. If it's subsequent to his licensing, that's relevant. But getting into a kind of plenary, asking him discussions to basically have a mini hearing regarding the nature of the conviction when you haven't submitted investigative reports or police reports isn't something that I'm going to let you get into too much. Either the conviction says what it says, and absent reports, unless he has said something in his statement you want to ask him about, I'm not going to let you get too deep into the question of his of the basis of the criminal conviction. Is his narrative statement attached to the petition?
It is, Your Honor, but I'm seeing the reference to the conviction only, but I do remember reading it somewhere else.
I don't see his
It's in the psychological report. That's where it is.
Again, I'll remind you that you had objected to the admissibility of the psychological report.
Right, but if it is being admitted as administrative hearsay, I believe that the respondent is entitled to ask questions.
You are, but I'm saying that I gave you the opportunity to make a motion to strike that exhibit. So by asking this question, then basically I'm not going to allow you to make a motion to strike about the exhibit.
Okay, I understand that. So
So why don't you ask the question based on his statements to the psychologist as contained in the report?
well, before I do that, since we're talking about this, Your Honor, if I may, to what extent will that psychological report be admitted as administrative hearsay?
Let me modify what I said. If you're going to ask a statement about it, that statement will come in. I have a question I have in my mind about this report. He didn't speak to it on direct testimony. The reason I'm asking about it now is, candidly, I was going to strike the exhibit if he didn't address anything about why he saw this psychologist. Now you want to go into and ask him questions about this. I'll give you, first of all, I should back up. I'll give you the opportunity to make a motion to strike because he didn't say anything on direct. But now you're asking him questions about it, so I was thrown a little bit off guard. You can certainly ask him questions about it, but I'm going to address that issue when and if you make a motion to strike.
Understood.
So if you want to ask him a question about what's in that report, you can do that.
Okay, with that understanding, and thank you, Your Honor, I am not going to ask that line of question yet. And
That does mean, are you going to? So you can't,
Well,
this
unless-
is the hearing.
well, I'm not going to ask a question at this point unless it comes up.
Okay, I get that. But you have a question, I'm not saying, it's fine. So you've withdrawn your question that was pending to Mr. Kim regarding the I guess it was the weight, the medication or the Oriental medicine that he was supposedly giving to people. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I proceed.
Yes.
Mr. Kim, I'd like to draw your attention to Exhibit 6 in the binder.
그걸 보세요.
Do you recognize that document?
본 적 있어요.
그거 맞나요?
중간에 6.
6.
Did you say 6?
Yes.
네, 6요. 본 적 있어요? Yes.
So in 2003, you were charged with 4 counts of felonies, the first of which was felony rape, and 2, 3, and 4 were felony sexual penetration. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after some time, the charges were reduced and you pled guilty to misdemeanor battery, correct?
Yes.
Could I have one moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
Mr. Kim, you stated during your testimony that during all of these events that occurred as described in the first amended accusation, you did not know what was going on because you were in China the whole time. Is that right?
맞습니다.
Yes, that is correct.
Isn't it true that intermittently in between these events, you did come in contact with investigating police officers who put you on notice, correct?
한 번은 간 적이 있습니다. 경찰서에.
Yes, there was one occasion I went to police station.
And when was that?
제 기억으로는 8년쯤으로 기억을 합니다. 정확히 기억이 잘.
As to my recollection, that was the year 1998. Right now, I don't recall clearly, but that was my recollection.
And during that interaction with a police officer, you were informed that there were prostitution activities at these clinics, which they alleged were operated by you, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, subject to admissibility of the rest of the exhibits, I have no more questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yun. At this point, I'm going to ask the members, beginning with Dr. Medeki, if they have any questions for Mr. Kim. Doctor, do you have any questions?
So the one question I have, there's in the letter of recommendation there, talk about you were doing the trips, medical missionary. So my question is, what were you doing on those trips? Were you seeing patients? You gave a treatment in the different countries? As what capacity?
그 어린이 사역에 갔었고요. 제가 라이선스가 없기 때문에 그 사역 팀이 있었긴 했지만 제가 치료에 참여하지는 않았습니다.
That was a children's ministry. At the time, I didn't have a license, so I was not attending a treatment while those trips. That was a VBS activity.
Any other members have any questions, beginning with the members, the three members to my right?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, for interrupting, but I wanted to get clarification on what BBS is.
Oh, you have an opportunity to ask a question. I'm not trying to cut you off here, but hold your question.
Understood.
After the members ask questions, you can ask your question.
I don't.
Your Honor. Mr. Kim,
Just state, I'm sorry, member, can you just state your name for the
sure.
record?
John Harbedian with the board. Just a few questions. One of the criteria that we consider as part of your rehabilitation is your total criminal record. So I'm going to ask you, have there been any other criminal convictions that you have sustained beyond what we've heard about in this discussion, that being the battery charge in 2003 and the previous issues related to the prostitution?
아무것도 없습니다.
That's it. There's nothing.
And the people had tried to ask you a question about the battery conviction, and I actually want to ask a question about that. Can you explain a little bit more as to the circumstances of that conviction? And I ask again because one of the factors is for us to consider the criminal record that you have sustained. How exactly did the underlying activity come to be? Was it specifically in the context of you providing healthcare services, i.e., in this case, I think dietitian services?
구타로 된 건 아니고요. 헬스케어 서비스랑 상관이 없는 그런.
It was not a battery and it's not related with the healthcare service.
설명을 잠깐
Should I explain the circumstance?
Yes.
네, 설명해 주세요. 한 문장씩.
2001년도에 제가 그 라이센스를 반납을 하고 나서요.
So after I surrendered my license year 2011,
2001.
correction 2001.
제가 여러 가지 일로 인해서 와이프랑 2002년에 헤어지게 됐습니다.
Because of many different events, 2002 I separated with my wife.
그리고 나서 잠깐 알게 된 여자가 있었는데.
After that incident, there was a short period I got to know one female.
그보다 16살이 어린 젊은 여자였어요.
That female was about 16 years younger than I.
결혼을 해달라고 하는 거를 제가 디나이 못한다, 너무 어리다.
At the time, that person wanted to get married with me, but then I denied. Well, like I told her that she was too young for me.
그 친구가 너무 하고 그래서.
So I think at the time that person got kind of a feeling of unfair or angry.
그래서 저를 다른 이렇게 사건으로 묶어서 저를 고소를 하게 됐던 겁니다.
So because of that, that person somehow made a legal action with some other event.
Can I jump in
something
just
like-
in, I guess, and more specifically, was this person the victim in the underlying crime? Was she a customer / patient of yours?
No.
So she did not receive any sort of services as diet services or otherwise from you prior to whatever relationship there was?
다이어트 클리닉에 왔던 여자.
That person, that female came to diet clinic.
근데 개인적으로 친분이 있었고.
Then I knew personally I know her.
Prior to her coming to your clinic?
클리닉 오기 전부터 알고 있었어요. Correct.
The people, I have a question for you, Mr. Young. What is I know it's Mr. Kim's burden. Is it a clear and convincing burden? Is it a preponderance burden? What is the burden that he needs to meet?
I believe we can ask the ALJ.
I can ask you, Mr. Levy, but do you have an understanding of what it is? And if you don't, that's fine.
Were you asking a question of member?
I'm asking a question of him, so
Mr.
that's
Yun?
yeah. That's why I
No,
want him
it's-
to
it's-
answer.
Yeah, it doesn't change. Even Mr. Yun knows. He's being nice. It's clear and convincing.
Mr. Yoon, do you have any? And I apologize, Your Honor. Is it okay if I ask the people a question during this time?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
I mean, it's not his burden, and Mr. Yun can certainly, he's certainly capable, a very good attorney,
Okay.
of addressing the issues that need to be addressed. But he's not sworn. He's
Got
an
it.
officer of the court, so
Understood.
he's presenting his case. So
Okay. Apologies. Mr. Kim, what has changed since in terms of your rehabilitation, this is my last question, since the board previously denied your petition for reinstatement, what has changed in the last 7 years that you think now meets the burden that was previously not met?
그 전에는 한의사가 치료만 잘한다 하면 되는 줄 알았습니다.
Previously, I thought that to practicing Oriental medicine, I just have to provide a good treatment.
근데 제가 그 7년 전에 디나이 하고 나서 무슨 문제인지 제 그 마음 상태를 다시 한번 점검을 하고
But then after the denial 7 years ago, after the denial of my petition, I was looking into myself what was wrong with me.
환자와 치료자의 그 관계를 다시 한번 잘 생각하게 됐습니다.
So I had a deep thought regards to a relationship between the patient and the person who provides the treatment.
그리고 환자를 어떻게 다뤄야 될 것이며
And I also thought about how to treat the patient
어떤 건 되고 어떤 건 안 된다는
and
걸
what is not allowed or not allowed, those things that I thought about it.
그리고 보드가 저한테 준 라이센스를 어떻게 내가 테이크를 해야 되는지
And also, I thought about how to take care of my license, which was provided by the board.
많이 배우고
So during those period, I have learned a lot,
내
and
인생의 가장 중요한 시기를 다 지나면서
those are very important time period for my life.
제가 많이 깨달았습니다.
And then I think I came to realize a lot of things during that period.
Can I ask the question based on the psychological process you strike out?
Yeah, it hasn't been stricken, and you can ask questions. It's admitted as administrative hearsay, so you can ask questions about it.
Because look at the report, and then Mr. So is recommend you.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you just, for the record, just state your name?
Yeah, Kipman Chen, the board member. And based on the psychological report, Mr. So to say recommended you had some kind of treatment. And do you get this treatment?
Yes.
And I don't see you submit any document to prove you are attending this treatment.
그 치료를 이제 출석했다는 그런 것에 대한 서류가 보지 않았어요. 여기 없어요. 그러니까 치료
한 2년 정도 제가 그 7년 전에 디나이 하고 나서 치료를 받아야지 되겠다 싶어서 제가 여기를 찾아갔고요. 한 2년 정도 시간이 걸렸습니다.
I have treated about like 2-year period since my case got denied about 7 years ago, and I thought that I needed this kind of treatment.
지금 질문이
Any other questions from any of the
다른
members?
질문이
Dr. Mitaki? Okay. Mr. Yun, you had a question. I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to ask it.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Actually, I have a couple of questions based on the good questions that the board members asked earlier. Mr. Kim, since we're talking about in reference to some of the paragraphs in the psychological report, and you have given answers, I want to talk to you about that. You mentioned that you took some rehabilitation program, and specifically, I believe on AGO 65, which is page 8 of the psychological report. It
Exhibit
states-
7.
증거물 7번이고요.
It states under third indented paragraph,
파라그래프 4번째 파라그래프.
starting with the fourth line, that specifically through the 12 sessions of rehabilitation program which focused on the sexual battery charges, he has learned to identify and recognize the sexually offending behaviors in personal and professional settings, restructured his distorted thinking, and learned how to perform professionally, specifically in acupuncture treatment setting.
Yes.
So these 12 sessions of rehabilitation program were only with regard to your 2003 battery conviction, correct?
그것도 있고 전체적인 그 acupuncture 그 리스트의 그 윤리관 이런 것도 받았습니다. 독성.
Yeah, as well, yes, as included that, and also I have attended for acupuncture ethic class as well.
I do understand from reviewing the ethics course certificate that you attended that course. However, I'm talking about the rehabilitation program that you attended, which this author of this psychological report states involved 12 sessions of this program. But according to this author, this program, these 12 sessions focused on the sexual battery charge of 2003. It doesn't go on to say that it addressed anything else that's mentioned in this first amended accusation or in this proceeding. Correct?
그걸로 갔고요.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And earlier, in response to one of the board members' questions, you stated that you reflected deeply about
깊게 생각을 하게 됐다.
provider-patient relationship.
환자와의 관계에 대해서 생각하게 됐다라고 얘기하셨습니다.
How is it relevant in this case?
이 사건은 어떻게 관련이 되는 겁니까? 그 말씀하신 게.
다시 한번 어떤 질문의 요지를 잘 못하겠습니다.
I don't quite.
구체적으로 좀.
I don't quite understand what was the point of your question. Would you please specify and ask again your question again, please?
Or in expressing,
Have the court reporter read the question back. I thought it was well-framed question, so just didn't understand it. Read back on that.
다시 그 질문을 읽어달라고 코리퍼. 식으로 감기가 됐다고 하십니까?
저와의 의도와는 상관없이 이렇게 많은 사건들이 성적인 문제들이 많이 관련이 됐어요. 이게 아큐프레셔에서.
Without my intention, there's many kind of sexual activities involved in like acupressure business.
그리고 뒤에도 그런 형사 문제도 있고.
And also there is some criminal case exist as well.
그래서 제가 그쪽 으로 많이 생각을 했고 치료도 받았고.
That's the reason why I thought about it a lot and also received the treatment.
so to clarify, are you stating that this provider-patient relationship that you reflected deeply on involving sexual nature is unrelated to your case.
지금 이 사건
이 케이스의 를 전체적으로 놓고 볼 때는 이 사람은 문제가 있는 사람이구나, 이렇게 성적으로 그런 생각이 드는 것 같아요. 그래서 제가
So, if you look at this case overall, I think you could think that this person has some kind of sexual problem. That's the reason why.
그래서 제가 다시 아큐펑처 리스트가 되면 환자를 대할 때 그런 문제와 상관은 어떻게 해야 될지에 대한 명확한 그런 공부를 한 거죠.
That's the reason if I became an acupuncturist, then how I should conduct myself with the patient. That's why I studied about it.
And were you just referring to yourself in the third person by saying this person in this document?
그러니까 지금 이게 그 본인을 디스퍼스니까 이 사람이 이렇게 얘기하셨죠. 그러니까 내가 나라는 얘기를 안 하고 제 3자로 칭해서 얘기하셨죠. 이 사건에 대해서. 그럼 이 사람이 이렇게 보일 수 있다라고. 지금 말씀하실 때
그건
이제 이
제가
사람은
봐도 그렇게 보입니다.
What I meant was even I look at it, I think that's how we perceive
그래서 제가 그렇게
this
말씀드렸습니다.
document. That's the reason why I said it, like, third party.
So, taking into account your earlier testimony,
근데 전에
you're denying knowledge of
질문하셨을
any
때
of these prostitution activities that
그
occurred at your clinics,
매춘
and you
이런
deny
부터,
any wrongdoing
그리고
in the battery
여기서
conviction,
이런 구타에 대한 것도
underlying facts of that battery
하시고,
conviction involving your girlfriend, who was also a client at your diet
거기에
clinic.
다이어 클리닉
Yet,
같은 그런
because it
것들도
appears from this paper that you have some sort of problem, you went through this rehabilitation program because you believe that that's what's required in order for you to be reinstated. Correct? That's what you're saying?
그래서 그것이 여기서 이제 그 서류에서 요청이 되고 그래서 이런 프로그램도 가고 그래서 이 라이센스가 리인스테이트 복귀되기 위해서 그런 프로그램을 가셨다. 지금 그렇게 얘기를 하시는 겁니까?
제가 다 인정하지 않은 건 아니고요. 제가 라이센스
I'm not saying that I deny everything.
제가 첫 번째 실수이고 마지막 큰 실수는 제가 라이센스를 제가 케어를 못했다는 겁니다.
My initial and the biggest mistake is that I did not manage my license very well.
그래서 제가 어떻게 하면 좀 더 나은 사람이 될 수 있을까? 그래서 제가 리합도 하고.
So I attend the rehab and all these classes to improve myself.
If you've not done anything wrong, why would you need to improve yourself?
잘못하면은 뭐하러 이런 것을 더 이렇게 프로바이어 이런 데를 가.
He didn't say he didn't do anything wrong.
근데 판사님이 여기서는
And kind of argumentative with him. He was answering and then
검사한테
dealing with language. Said what he said, which is his biggest mistake, is that he didn't manage his license very well.
Understood, Your Honor.
So why don't you,
검사가
so
자꾸만 그런 식으로
we have the question read back, the last question, Mr. Young asked, so that
마지막
can answer. I think you're treading over the same ground, Mr. Young.
anything wrong, why would you need to improve?
잘못한 게 없는 검사가 한게 아까 마지막 라스트 퀘스천 잘못한 게 없는데 임프루브 왜 내가 자기 자신을 질문이에요. 마지막 질문.
제가 잘못을 했고요.
because I made a mistake.
그 라이센스를 잘못 케어를 해서 일어난
Because
모든
I did not
일,
take care of my license very well.
모든 일들을 제가 잘 알고 있습니다.
So I know very well about everything that occurred.
다시는 이런 일이 없도록 하기 위해서 제가 잘못된 것이 없는지.
So I wanted to find out if there's anything that I was wrong. I wanted to find out so that I can prevent the future occurrence.
In response to one of the board members' questions with regard to what has changed in the last 7 years since the last denial of your petition for reinstatement, you stated, along with the reflection on provider-patient relationship, you also stated that you thought about how to take care of your license. My question to you, sir, is if you're claiming that prostitution activities occurred, and I'm referencing specifically the third cause of discipline, which you admitted in the stipulated surrender. If it's your claim that somebody else used your license without your permission, without your knowledge, then how can you take care of your license if you were not responsible for that? What steps can you take?
You're asking the same question in different ways. You're treading over the same ground. He's already answered a number of times that he didn't take care of his license. You're in fine lines here. Your point. I hear what you're saying, which is your point based on what he's already.
Can I move on to a more specific question?
Well, you said, in all fairness, I'm not holding you to 3 questions, but you said you had 3 questions based on the members' questions. So,
Okay.
If you want to get into something else, you're not limited to what these members asked about.
Understood.
But if you have other questions you want to get into, why don't you get into that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And ask your questions in that regard.
Yes, Your Honor. In consideration for the board, with regard to rehabilitation, I want to ask this following question, Mr. Kim, which is, what specific steps will you take to take care of your license, as you stated?
Continuing education에 보면 알겠지만요.
As you can see from the continuing education class,
한의사 윤리 클래스를
I took the acupuncturist ethic class, and
정신과 치료도 받았고
then I get a psychological treatment, and
좋은 한의사가 되기 위해서 여러 가지 한의 정보 건강과 건강이라는 잡지 매달 구독해서 보고
so I wanted to try to be a very good Oriental medicine practitioner. So I actually read a magazine called the Oriental Medicine and the Health magazine every month.
그리고 시간에 상관없이 컨티뉴 에듀케이션 좋은 선생님 할 때마다 찾아가서 공부하고
And also, regardless about the time, if there's any good teacher for continuing education, I try to attend those classes.
More questions, Your Honor.
Any of the members have any questions?
또 질문 있는 사람 있으면 질문
Kentucky?
없습니다.
Okay.
질문 있으시면
Um,
말씀하세요.
Anything else you'd like to say, sir?
네, 뭐 그거 말고 뭐 다른 거 뭐 얘기하시고 싶으신 거 있으십니까?
I'll give you the opportunity to make a closing statement as
그래서
well,
이제
and Mr. Young as well.
사장님이 마지막으로 클로징 그러니까 최종 진술하세요. 하고 싶은 얘기 있어요?
저 같이 부족한 사람을 위해서 시간을 이렇게 많은 분들이 내주고
First of all, I'd like to pay my appreciation to everyone who is here. There's so many people here for this hearing. So I want to say thank you.
제가 좀 어렸을 때부터 꿈인 게 한의사였고
From very young age, my dream was become a acupuncturist.
7년 동안 풀타임으로 공부도 했었고요.
And also, I studied for a 7-year period, full time, studied for that.
예,
But then,
무엇이 잘못되려고 그랬는지 제가 실수를 크게 해서
so I made a very big mistake,
어긋났습니다.
and then this incident occurred.
2001년도에 납을 하고
So I surrendered my license in 2001,
17년이 지났습니다.
and then that since then it has been like 17 years pass.
17년 동안
And-
나의 17년 동안 너무 많은 걸 값비싼 대가를 치르고
During those 17 years period, there's so many things, and I have paid very expensive lesson fee.
그래도 이 사회가 저한테 너무나 감사하고
But then I'm still very thankful to this society.
제가 만약에 다시 한의사가
And if I became an acupuncturist again,
정말 좋은 한의사가 돼서
truly I will try my best to be a good acupuncturist
받은 것만큼 더
and
사회에
want to return to the society as much as I have received from the society. That's all.
I'm going to, Mr. Kim, I'm going to deem your comments as a closing statement, and I'll give Mr. Yun the opportunity to make a closing statement at this point. Any before I get to Mr. Yun, do you have anything else, sir?
한테 이제 최종 주스할 기회를 드리기 전에 지금 말씀하신 것 말고 또 따로
No, that's it.
And Mr. Yun, before I turn it over to you, just a housekeeping matter. We mentioned the exhibit, the psychological report. Do you have any issue regarding that document?
Just that it remain as administrative hearsay, Your Honor.
So Exhibit 7 is admitted as administrative hearsay to the extent it supplements or explains evidence that is admissible pursuant to Government Code 11513 Subdivision D. So Mr. Yun, you proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
감사합니다, 판사님.
The petitioner couldn't even admit what he had admitted on paper. With his signature, with his attorney's signature. It wasn't one of those standard default languages. It was very precise and specific that he's only admitting to the third cause of discipline and that he's only admitting to the fact that he was the owner of this particular acupuncture clinic, Carson Acupressure. He couldn't even admit that in front of you today, as he was explaining that he has been sufficiently rehabilitated. Someone I didn't know put or used my license and conducted my business. And I quote, "That was all." That's the extent of his taking responsibility. Members of the board and Your Honor, I mentioned during my opening statement that despite what the petitioner said in his opening, to pay attention to what extent he's admitting responsibility, to what extent he is taking remorse for his actions. Now, as the board is aware, in considering rehabilitation, there are 6 criteria that the board need to consider. 1, the nature and severity of the acts or offenses. 2, total criminal record. 3, the time that has elapsed. 4, whether the licensee has complied with any terms of parole, probation. 5, evidence of expungement. And 6, evidence, if any, of rehabilitation submitted by the licensee. In this particular case, the criteria that are most relevant are nature and severity of the act, total criminal record, and the evidence of rehabilitation submitted by the petitioner, including his testimony. I won't go too much into the first and second because they are already on paper and we've heard about it, about the prostitution activities that occurred at his clinics and about his subsequent criminal conviction involving a client of his at this dietary clinic that he operated after the revocation of his license. Evidence of rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is a state of mind that the law looks with favor upon rewarding with the opportunity to serve one who has achieved reformation and regeneration. The petitioner has not achieved either of those two. Fully acknowledging the wrongfulness of past actions is an essential step towards rehabilitation. Someone else used my license. That was all. That's how much he's acknowledging his fault. The petitioner kept saying throughout his testimony and during cross-examination and during answers to your questions that he made a very big mistake. I made a very big mistake. Yet he never admitted to any of the underlying facts. Nothing of substance, just that I made a very big mistake. He wants the board to think that he's taking responsibility for his actions, that he's remorseful. But it is mere form. He's putting on a show to appear as if he is remorseful so that he can get his license back. He even stated during one of his answers that when I look at it, this person on this paper, it looks like somebody who has a problem. And in order for me to get the license back, it will be appropriate for me to take these rehabilitation classes. Even then, he never admitted that he did anything wrong, that he was the owner of any one of these facilities, even though on paper he admitted that he was the owner of at least one of these facilities. And he, in the beginning, stated that he was in China and he had no knowledge of any of these activities, yet when pressed upon a more specific answer, he did state that he did come back to the U.S. and became in contact with a police officer or the police department that informed him of these prostitution activities that was going on at these clinics. Now, according to appellate court decision in re Mena, it's a 1995 case. The appellate court stated, a truer indication of rehabilitation is sustained conduct over an extended period of time. There was no sustained conduct or sustained remorse over an extended period of time, but rather here what we've seen is a sustained denial over an extended period of time. The petitioner denied any wrongdoing at the time of the filing of the amended accusation. At the time of his surrendering his license, he limited his culpability. And today, after admitting to some of the culpability in the first amended accusation, now he's changing his stance yet again, and he is even denying what he had previously factually admitted. This is a sustained denial over an extended period of time. Quite the opposite of what this appellate court had ruled in the past is a truer indication of rehabilitation. This proceeding is about whether or not petitioner has demonstrated sufficient rehabilitation and that he can safely practice acupuncture and be entrusted to the public again. The evidence that was presented by the petitioner has not clearly shown that. Has not shown that it can be entrusted with the public. In fact, his subsequent conviction proves otherwise. Sure, it was a girlfriend, but it was also a client of his. He was also a client at his diet clinic, at which he testified, in which he was providing oriental medicine to help her with weight loss. Arguably a healthcare setting. Regardless of which version of events he may admit to, Petitioner has not demonstrated that he now has the mental strength or intelligence to avoid being in the same situation that he had been in the past. In fact, when one of you board members asked him what has changed in the past 7 years, he stated that two things have changed in the past 7 years. One, that he thought deeply about the provider-patient relationship. But nothing here is about patient-provider relationship, perhaps with the exception of his recent conviction in which he sexually battered his girlfriend who was a client of his healthcare or dietary clinic, but he's not even admitting to the truth of that underlying fact. So what is he trying to improve on? He's merely putting on a show for this board to think that he has taken steps when in fact he's not taking responsibility for any of these underlying conduct, but he just wants on paper that he did something so that the board will consider reinstating him. That is not rehabilitation. That is trickery. Now, the second thing that he stated he did in the last 7 years since the first denial of his reinstatement was that he thought a lot about how to take care of his license. When pressed upon, and when I asked him what specific steps you have in mind that you will take to ensure that the same thing will not happen again. In other words, he stated that in his opening, the only thing that he did wrong was someone I didn't know put or used my license and conducted my business, and I quote, "that was all." Yet if he's saying that he has thought a lot about how to take care of his license, but it was out of his control, then what steps has he really taken? Nothing has changed in the past 7 years. And the reasons for denial of reinstatement remain the same. He has shown not rehabilitation, but sustained denial over an extended period of time. For these reasons, members of the board, I respectfully request that the board deny his petition and deny reinstatement of his license. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yun. I'll just give Mr. Kim the ability to make a last word in reply. Do you wish to say anything?
제가 다 잘못을 하는 건 아니고요. 제가
I'm not denying everything that has, went wrong.
에 대한 저의 잘못을 17년 동안 정말 많은 걸 주고 배웠습니다.
Because of the wrongdoing during 17 years period, I have learned a lot.
변함 없다고 말씀하셨는데요.
That I heard that I did not change.
제가 최선을 다해서 치료받고 제가 많이 했다고 저는 변하기를 저는 노력을 했습니다.
I have tried my best to get a treatment, and I put my very best effort to change, and I think I have changed.
그리고 라이센스는 정말 내 목숨보다도 더 관리 잘할 자신이 있습니다.
And I am totally confident that I will maintain my license and treasure more than my own life.
이제는 더 이상 실수하지 않고 좋은 한의사로서 공헌을 하면서
I will no longer make such a mistake, and I want to be a very good acupuncturist so that I can contribute to the society.
Okay, thank you, sir. Unless there's anything else, I'm going to close the record, deem the matter submitted. I want to thank you, Mr. Kim, for your presentation, and Mr. Yun as well. And also, I want to thank our interpreter as well for her work. With that, I'm going to close the record, deem the matter submitted. The board will look at all the evidence that was submitted, including the testimony of Mr. Kim, and we'll issue a decision and the parties will receive that decision in the mail. So again, I want to thank both of you for your work on this matter, and the record is closed and the matter is deemed submitted, and we're off the record.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
I think, my opinion, I would run through the second one and then go. Mr. Yoon, I think, is on the second one as well. But we have a 5-minute break. I don't know.
Oh yes, our interpreter needs a break.
Yeah.
Our co-reporter needs a break.
But I think. Go into closed session.
Ready to go for our afternoon or late morning matter. Okay, are we ready? Mr. Yun?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation filed by Kyung Kim, case number PETR-1A-2014-221, OAH case number 2018-041-310. Today's date is January 28, 2018, and we are in San Diego, California, and we're before a quorum of the Acupuncture Board. My name is Abraham Levy. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings of the State of California, and I'll be presiding over this matter and addressing evidentiary issues as they arise or as they may arise. Before we proceed further, I note that Dr. Kim is at the table along with an interpreter. I'm going to swear the interpreter in at this point. And ma'am, I'm just going to ask that, I'll swear you in, and then I'll ask you some questions. So please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury to the State of California that you will interpret completely and accurately from Korean to English and from English to Korean without adding or subtracting anything?
I do.
And if I may ask, can you please provide Dr. Kim with a simultaneous translation of what is being said here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
And if for any reason you need clarification or any kind of break, please tell me, and we'll go forward with that. Okay.
Understood, Your Honor.
With that, I'm sorry. Just state your name for the record. I didn't get that from you. Sorry, ma'am.
Interpreter name Chansan Nishimura, California State Certified Court Interpreter ID number 301033.
Thank you, ma'am. I note a couple things. One is I have a binder of pre-marked exhibits, 1 through 15, and we'll go through those when we start. I note, let me just get the appearances of the parties, beginning with Dr. Kim. Please state your name, please. Dr. Kim.
My name is Kyung Kim.
Good afternoon, ma'am. And on behalf of the Attorney General?
Mr. Honor, good afternoon. Michael Yoon, Deputy Attorney General for the State of California, the respondent in this matter.
Good afternoon, sir. As I noted, I have a set of pre-marked exhibits 1 through 15. In a moment, I'll ask the parties to make opening statements if they wish, or give the parties the opportunity to make opening statements if they wish. But at this point, why don't we go through the exhibits and see if there's any issues relating to them. This is in relation to petitioner's application for early termination. So, Dr. Kim, you have this binder of materials in front of you, and I know this Mr. Yoon prepared these, and I thank him for doing that. So we'll go through these exhibits, starting with Exhibit 1, which is the career page and narrative statement by Dr. Kim. So, Dr. Kim, are you offering Exhibit 1?
Yes.
Any objection, Mr. Yoon?
No, Your Honor.
No objection. Exhibit 1 is admitted. Exhibit 2 is a verified letter of reference from David Kim, licensed acupuncturist. You're offering this, Dr. Kim?
Yes.
Any objection, Mr. Yoon?
Yes, Your Honor, only that it be admitted as administrative hearsay.
The objection is, well, the objection is sustained, and I'll admit it only as administrative hearsay. So Exhibit 2 is admitted as administrative hearsay. Exhibit 3 is another letter from acupuncturist Kim. You're offering this, Dr. Kim?
Yes.
Any objection, Mr. Young?
Same objection, just administrative hearsay.
Objection sustained. Exhibit 3 is admitted as administrative hearsay. Exhibit 4 is the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, which placed Dr. Kim on probation. Any objection?
Your Honor, no objections to the rest of the exhibits. 4 through 15.
Well, let me first back up. Dr. Kim, you're offering exhibits 4 through 15. We'll just cut to the chase here. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor,
Okay.
correct.
I'm sorry for interrupting. So no objection. Exhibits 4 through 15 are admitted. And so why don't we proceed with opening statements? The burden of proof is on petitioner in this matter. Petitioner has the burden to prove that early termination is warranted based on clear and convincing evidence. We'll start with petitioner. Ma'am, if you wish to make an opening statement that summarizes why you believe early termination is warranted, I note that you'll have the opportunity to testify, and before the board can consider anything you say, you have to be placed under oath. So I'll let you make an opening statement if you wish.
네, 2년 프로베이션 기간 중에 1년 반이 지났습니다.
A 2-year probation period, 1.5 year has passed. I did everything has been required by the board, including a urination test and urination test 또 뭐 했다고요? AA class.
기간 동안에 위축이 돼서 환자
And also, as the letter said, that during the probation period, I was in a way that I think, a little bit effect on treating the patient because of the little bit of lack of confidence. For example, when I make the medicine, I cannot taste it myself because of the urination test. Another thing is that that it has about driving issue, that go to patient place for treatment. That was kind of one of the difficulties that I'm experienced. And also, just during a probation period, it's a cost of moving the clinic. So I just wanted to clear this, and so that I can start. I can have a new start in a new place. And also, there is a personal reason that I have over 80 years old mother in Korea, and because of this, it's kind of difficult for me to visit my mother. And another personal reason is San Diego Korean Movie Festival. I am the one of the person who are the charge of doing a San Diego Movie Festival, and that actually is difficult because of this.
Thank you, Doctor.
감사합니다.
Mr. Yun, do you wish to make a statement regarding the AG's position in this matter?
I don't have a recommendation yet, Your Honor. I'd like to reserve that until after cross-examination, but I do have a very brief opening.
That's fine. Go ahead.
This is more descriptive than anything. Ms. Kim was licensed to practice acupuncture on March 26, 2012, and she drank and drove on December 2nd, 2014 at around 10:43 p.m. The blood alcohol level was 0.20, well beyond the legal limit. Her DUI involved a traffic collision with a parked car. She displayed some objective signs of alcohol intoxication. And she was placed on probation for 2 years, and it's been 1 year and 5 months since she was placed on probation. And it appears from my review of the mitigation evidence submitted by Ms. Kim, as well as the board's record, that she has made one failure to appear for a biological fluid testing on June 9th, 2017, for which I'm sure Ms. Kim will address during her testimony. But this time, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Yun. At this point, ma'am, I assume you want to testify. I'm going to put you under oath so the board can consider what you have to say. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the state of California that the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Ma'am, what would you like to say? Why do you believe the board should terminate your probation early?
저한테는 질문하지 말고 얘기하세요. So, are you asking why I am requesting an early termination?
That's why you're here. That's your
그것
petition.
때문에 여기 오셨잖아요.
조금 전에
네.
얘기하던 것을 이어서 하는지.
Because I wasn't really sure that I made a statement for opening statement whether I should continue with that or.
Well, that's always the problem with these matters. Sometimes people get confused. They think that the opening statement is something that's more than it is. I think what you probably need to do is repeat what you said in your opening statement. It is part of the record, and I can ask you right now if what you said was true and accurate in order that your oath would apply to what you said in your opening statement. So was it what you said in your opening statement true and accurate, and you understand you're subject to perjury?
Yes.
Okay, so the board can consider your opening statement as evidence if the board wishes. You can continue. I'm not limiting what you want to say.
그럼 제가 그 말한 거에 대해서 제한을 두는 게 아니고 또 할 말이 있으면은 컨티뉴 계속적으로 얘기를 하셔도 됩니다. 근데 아까 말씀하신 거는 이제 이 보도한테 증거로 채택이 됐습니다. 더 얘기하실 거 없어요. 그거 말고.
That's it, Your Honor.
Okay. Right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Yun to ask questions if you wish.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Kim, I'm just going to go over some of these exhibits that you have provided to the board and the board has of your performances during your probation. So let's start with exhibit number 2. I just had a quick question. It appears to be a letter of reference from David Kim. Could you briefly tell us the nature of your relationship with David Kim? How he knows you?
While I was a student in South Baylor University, he was a professor. Since the university as a professor, he was guiding me a lot. So since he was in charge of an ethics class, I have discussed this matter with him.
And could you tell us a little more in detail as to the nature and the frequency of Mr. Kim's guidance over your practice as an acupuncturist?
Right now, he's offering a CPR class, so I attend regularly.
And how often is regular?
얼마나 주기적으로 받은 게 얼마나 자주 받고 있습니까? 그러면 얼마나 자주?
기간이 별이 아니고요. 일레귤러인데 지금은 이라는 걸 강의 자주 만날 때
방침이 뭐죠?
So the period is not regular; it's an irregular class. Right now, he's teaching some kind of the acupuncture treatment that called 경침.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 3.
증거물 3번으로 넘어가 주세요.
This appears to be a letter of reference authored by someone named Changyup Kim. Could you briefly tell the board who this person is and how he knows you and how you know him?
The person is here in this hearing room.
The person is
Here in
individual
this
is-
hearing.
the individual has raised his hand, and he's in the hearing room. I'll just note that.
지금 손 들었습니다. 지금 말씀하신
저희
분께서.
그 동생 남편이고요.
He is my younger sister's husband,
학교를 계속 같이 다니는
and
경험이
also we attend the school together.
한국에서부터 만난 거로 치면은
Including the time in Korea, I think I have known him about like 25 years period.
And of those 25 years, how long has he known you in the school setting?
For school, I think from the year 2009 when I entered the school until now.
And how long is that in duration? How many years? How many months?
10년.
10 years? Yes, 10 years.
Thank you. Let's move on to exhibit number 5. This appears to be a 4-page document with the first page's title being Energy, Blood Balance, and Analysis Research. Could you tell us what this document is and why this is not signed?
제가 이
I got to get a proffer. Why does this document need to be signed, Mr. Yun?
I don't know. I don't know the nature of this document, so I'm asking why these are unfilled documents that have been provided to the board.
I mean, you characterize it as unsigned, so I'm just curious. I know that's how you, in the exhibits you prepared, and I thank you for that. You mentioned unsigned, so. Okay.
보드의 얼리 터미네이션을 신청할 때 최근에 읽은 책이라고 써 있었습니다.
When I request early termination to the board, there was one of the requirement regards to what kind of book that I have studied.
이 논문을 준비 중에 있었습니다.
At that period, I was preparing this essay.
9일에 사인이 없었습니다.
I graduated May 9th, and at the time, there was no signature.
Let's move on to exhibit number 9.
9으로 갔어요.
I'd like to draw your attention to AGO 0088.
88.
And this appears to be a letter from the board to you, Ms. Kim, dated February 15th, 2018. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And did you receive this letter?
편지 받으셨어요?
Yes.
And this letter states that the board received information from First Source Solutions that you failed to log in timely between the hours of 5 a.m. and 6 p.m. on February 14th, 2018. Is that allegation correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And could you tell us why you missed that signing in?
That day, I had a patient from very early morning to 6시 p.m. Yes. 6시가 p.m. 얘기하시는 거예요. 6 p.m. And there was an emergency patient as well that day. Every morning I checked, but then that day I couldn't check in the morning because of the emergency patient.
And that was the only time you failed to log in to the system on the internet, right?
Yes, that is correct, just one time.
I want to refer you to AGO page 107. And yeah, let's start there. This is a letter dated August 10th, 2017 to you from the board. Title is Biological Fluid Tests Invalid. Do you recognize this document?
Could you tell me the number again?
This was AGO
AGO
0107.
0107.
Yes.
And did you receive this letter?
Yes.
The letter reads, in summary, the Acupuncture Board is concerned about a specimen test result that was deemed invalid. Your specimen submitted on July 24th, 2017 was deemed invalid due to the pH level reporting above the cutoff limit. The pH cannot report any lower than 4.5 or higher than 9.0. Your pH level reported at 9.3, therefore invalidating this test. Could you give us an explanation as to why this test result happened?
Before you answer the question, I'm confused by what that means. I mean, I don't know. That's not positive for alcohol. It's and does it reference something from Fortis Labs that says she was positive for alcohol?
No, Your Honor, that the result, the sample was invalid.
Right, I understand that, but I mean, you indicated that there was one missed lab as a concern, but I'm not sure, and I'm giving you this as an opportunity to make a proffer, what the issue is with regard, your concern is with regard to the invalid lab as opposed to a dirty lab.
Well, the concern that the board may have in general, not necessarily in this particular case, but with regard to invalid test results, is that there may be some trying to look for the right word, tampering with the sample. So I'm just giving the petitioner an opportunity to give an honest answer so that the board members have a full record of things to consider.
Do you remember the question, ma'am? And to the extent you can answer it, you can answer the question.
이런 경우가 몇 번 있었습니다.
There has been a few occasions like this.
소디움이나 pH 문제로 이렇게 생긴 적이
There was like the issues arose because of the sodium and salt, salt.
이 pH 문제는 이때뿐이 아니라 직전에 커피를 먹거나 그러면 이렇다고 보르게스께서 말씀해서 그 이후로는 직전에 커피를 마시지 않았습니다.
I was told that if I take the coffee right before the test, I would have this pH issues. So since then, I try not to drink coffee before the test.
이런 편지를 받았을 때는 매번 그 전날 음식과 음료를 보고했습니다.
So whenever I receive this kind of letter, I have reported what kind of food food intake, and then also the kind of the drink that I consume.
소디움이 많았을 때는 냉면을 먹은 후였습니다.
When they show the high sodium, that was when I ate a Korean soup-based cold noodles.
약 먹는 것도 어렵다고 말씀드린 것입니다.
That was the reason initially that it was difficult for me to take the Oriental medicine because of the test.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to exhibit number 10. These are entitled quarterly reports. Are these the quarterly reports that you submitted to the board during your probation?
Could you read back the question, please?
Are these the quarterly reports that you submitted to the board yourself?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit number 11, which which I've titled as AA Support and Recovery Group Attendance Sheet. Do you recognize these documents?
Yes.
And could you tell us what this is?
This is the attendance sheet for me to attend that class for Alcohol Anonymous class.
Okay, let's go to exhibit number 13. This is Bates labeled as AGO0208. It's an email from you to an employee of the Acupuncture Board dated February 14th, 2018. Could you tell us what this email was about?
질문 나왔던 체크인하지 못했던 날에 대한 설명을 제가 이제 놓친 걸 알고 오늘 상황을 보고를 했습니다.
This is the explanation regards to the previous question about missing check-in, and so that when I realized it, I reported the reason.
Okay, let's move on to exhibit number 14. This is a email reply and a original email. It looks like an exchange between you and an employee of the Acupuncture Board. The latest email being dated July 4th, 2017. Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Looking at the center of the document, it reads, and this appears to be the portion of the series of emails in which the employee of the Acupuncture Board wrote an email to you, Ms. Kim. It reads, the board has been notified that you may have failed to appear for your biological fluid specimen test on June 9th, 2017. If you failed to appear, please send me your written explanation as to why you failed to appear. Do you recognize this document? Could you tell us about why you failed to appear for your biological fluid specimen test?
I'm sorry, didn't she just testify to this?
Is this the same incident?
똑같은
I
거예요?
see.
That is correct, same one.
Okay, I misread it. I apologize. Ms. Kim, did you successfully complete your criminal probation for your DUI charge?
Yes.
You attended the DUI program and went to other relevant requirements that were imposed by the Superior Court?
모든 거 다 해서 보드에서 시작하기 전에 1년 반으로 원리터미네이션 받고 끝났어요.
Everything has been completed. So before I start this board, before 1.5 years, everything has been completed.
And could you tell us about your drinking habits since the DUI incident?
Let's give me a proffer on that. Give you an opportunity to change the question. Give me a proffer on drinking habits.
You still drink alcohol ever since the DUI incident?
먹을 수 없습니다. 그리고 먹지 않고 있습니다.
As you can see the record, I cannot drink anymore, and I don't drink, period.
And based on your rehabilitation efforts and reflection, what steps will you take to ensure that you do not drink and drive again?
사실은 지금 거의 그 마켓에서 누가 술 사고 있는 거 봐도 트라우마 정도로 생겼습니다.
To be honest with you, when I go to market and someone buy the alcohol, I have, just looking at it, I had some kind of trauma. I'm afraid of drinking.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Yun. Well, I'll start with questions from the members, if they have any, beginning with Dr. Mateki.
Thank you, Judge. One of my question I have is you continue seeing patients during this probation time. And did you tell your patients? And are you currently on probation?
하지 않았습니다.
No, I did not.
Questions.
We'll start with questions from the members to my right. Do you have any questions?
I don't.
No, Your Honor.
Dr. Chan? Okay, anything else, ma'am?
없습니다.
No, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Yun?
No, Your Honor.
I'll let you have the opportunity to make closing statements, so I'm just asking if you have any other evidence you wish to present. Other evidence, sir?
No, Your Honor.
So at this point, I'll let the parties make closing statements, beginning with Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim? May just summarize why you believe that.
I don't have, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Yun, do you have a position on behalf of the Attorney General?
Submit on the evidence and ask that the board carefully consider the evidence, including the rehabilitation efforts made by the petitioner in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Yun. Thank you for preparing the binder in this matter as well. Well, with that, Dr. Kim, I'm going to close a record, deem the matter submitted. The board will issue its decision, and you'll receive that decision in the mail. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to close the record and deem the matter submitted, and thank you for your work on this matter, and thank you, Mr. Yun, for your work on this matter. So with that, the record's closed and matter is deemed submitted. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We're off the record. I guess we do go into closed session.
Yes. So let's see.
Change my seat here.
Not yet. Let me just, okay. So the board will now enter a closed session to discuss the hearings held today. Board members, honorable judge, and the board legal counsel, please remain in the room. I would like to request all other members of the audience to leave the room. Thank you.
One, two, three.
Awesome.
Okay, good afternoon. Let's reconvene. Start with item agenda number 7. Review and approve board minutes. And Mark Johnson, please.
Okay, board members, we've got many minutes to approve as we have not had a full meeting in some time, but we can get these out of the way here. So if you turn to agenda items 7 through 11, number 7, review and approval of the October 20th, 2017 board meeting minutes. Happy to entertain any changes.
I think it would be helpful maybe to go one page at a time.
Yeah. So it's 8 pages, just recapping our meeting. 2, 3.
Any changes on page 1?
I'm just going to go for the big ones.
Please.
Just where it says 4-0, it should be 4-1 for members present.
Okay. Page 2. changes? None? Okay. Page 3. Changes? None? Okay. Page 4. Top of page 5, just got to fix the gap a little bit there. So, page 5. Okay. Page 6. Changes, okay. Page 7. Page 8. So that is the first set of meeting minutes.
Point of clarification for the board members, being that we are at quorum right now, we are missing 2 of the members that were present for each of these meetings. We will not be able to approve the minutes, but we can accept the minutes, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, so the motion to be made, if you're okay with it, is to accept the minutes as they are.
Okay. Do we have enough quorum for this?
Yeah, the
this
members
year.
at October that are here were Mateki Chan and Osario. And Jeannie was also here, but she is no longer with the board, and Francisco was here, but he's not. So I think, Sawa, can we do a full adoption of the minutes because it's 3-1, and the members that were at the October meeting are here today? Or is it still an accept motion?
I'm not sure. If you want, I can take 5 minutes and look at Open Meeting Act.
Sorry to muddy the waters.
It's okay. What I
March, April, so those we can do.
Right, well, my consideration is that we need 4 votes to be able to approve. But I will clarify that shortly.
Just need a simple majority, don't we? 3-1?
It's okay.
Patience, members. Settle down now.
Quickly. Of course. I'm not really sure I've know of the distinguishing between approving versus accepting.
Okay.
Honestly, the first time I've heard that was the approving.
I had to use it before with a couple of minutes a year or 2 ago.
I think we can go with approval, yeah, and if there's an issue.
Thank you.
Okay.
So according here, we had a 4 member as a qualified for the quorum. Now Jenny Ken is not here.
Yeah.
Even less than half.
Now, would Member Harabidian need to abstain from the vote?
Ooh.
I was going to say, do you think is there I know sometimes absent member can vote to approve minutes just on the basis that or she believes that they're accurate, even though they weren't at the meeting, so.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, Member Harabedian, could have watched the webcast. He could have, reviewed the materials.
Yeah.
It's not like a disciplinary matter where you have to hear the evidence, and if you haven't heard the evidence, you obviously can't vote, so I think it's okay.
All right.
Is there a motion on the table?
I make a motion to accept this meeting minutes.
I second that.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Kipman Chan, seconded by Mr. Ruben Osorio. You can have a vote.
Public comment?
Yes. Public comment?
Public comment.
Seeing and hearing no public comment.
Gotta follow it. Okay, the motion is by Kipman to approve the minutes from October 20th, 2017 with minor changes on page 1 and page 7.
I'd like to propose, sorry, I went by quickly, I was still thinking about this, accepting versus approving. I'd recommend that the motion include authority to the executive officer to make technical and non-substantive changes, and I want to give the board an idea of kind of what some of those look like.
Sure.
Some of, the changes that I noticed were, on the first page, Kitman Chan, public member, just identifying him as the vice president, having the Oxford comma. I'm a fan of the Oxford comma in certain places. In some of the agenda items, near the title of the agenda item, it identifies who's speaking, so for example, on agenda item 1, it doesn't indicate Dr. Mateki. Some other ones, it does indicate who's speaking. Other global changes, like making sure that board is capitalized B throughout. Some other, wording, typographical items. Making sure that things that are abbreviated, like solid, are spelled out the first time, abbreviated going forward, like that's just a global change. So mostly my changes are recommended changes, I think, are technical, non-substantive, just to add some clarity. It doesn't change the substance of what's being said. So if authority can be given to the executive officer to make those changes before they're published online.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Chan and Osorio, are you willing to take that amendment?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
okay, so
Public comment? None?
all right, Kipman Chan, motions to approve the October 20th minutes and delegate to the EO the ability to make non-substantive and technical changes. The second is by Osorio. So the vote is Mateki,
Yes.
Chan,
Yes.
Harabedian,
Yes.
Osorio.
Yes.
Okay, 4-0, motion passes. Okay, thank you. The next set of minutes is for agenda item 10, Friday, November 17th, 2017 meeting minutes. These are fairly short.
Clarification, that's agenda item number 8.
Number 8, thank you. Okay, so page 1, any changes?
4-1 on members present.
Page 2.
Just similar
Spell out.
global changes as described for the previous.
Spelled acronym and ACOM, CAL,
Mhm.
NCCOM, yeah, good.
BS.
Yes. Okay. Page 3. Okay. Okay, members, so that's it for those minutes. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve November board minutes
Second.
Yeah.
and also give the yield for non-substantial technical changes.
I heard a second from Arabidian. Public comment? Hearing and seeing none.
Okay, the motion is by Dr. Mateki to approve the November 17, 2017 meeting minutes with delegation to EO to make any non-substantive changes. The second is by Harbedian. The vote, Mateki,
Yes.
Chan,
Yes.
Harbedian,
Yes.
Osorio,
Yes.
4-0. Motion passes. Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 9, review and approval of the December 15th, 2017 meeting minutes. Again, this is pretty brief, and just as a short explanation, well, okay, first off, any changes to page 1? Okay. Page 2, any changes? So on item number 5, you'll notice that we didn't really have a narrative for the discussion. Basically, I think the idea was to just sort of summarize what was happened, what was presented. But because we had all of the solid materials on the website, which indicates our discussion, as well as various other materials like that is available in that manner. So in the idea of having an accurate record, but having a record that covers the big things and doesn't delve into the weeds too much, we opted to do it this way. And then page 3, any changes, members? Oh.
Um,
4-1.
Members present 4-1, yeah. Or is it 5, maybe 5?
It was 5. It was a 5-0.
5-1.
Yeah. Actually,
Right?
it was 5-0 because we only had 5 members at the time.
But Member Osorio was excused at that time.
He was excused. Yeah, he was excused later, and then you notice down at the bottom of page 2, we took roll again, and it was 4-1, not 4-0.
4-1, that's right.
Okay, that's what you're referring to. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
4-1. And then it indicates 5. Do you see that? Mateki, Chen,
yeah.
Shia, King.
Yeah, got that.
Yeah. And just a point of clarity on page 3 of that agenda, on agenda item 8, it says there were no future agenda items. Does that mean there weren't any discussed by the board?
There was no by the board or by the future agenda items refers to the board members putting agenda items on, and then there was no public comment asking for the same.
You can clarify that. Spell that out.
So what do we want to say? There was no public comments made for future agenda items, or?
Perhaps there were no future agenda items identified or proposed agenda items identified, something like that.
By the public or by
The board or public.
Okay. So there were no. Okay, so that sentence will say there were no future agenda items identified by members or the public.
And I think it's fair to leave the point that, there was also no public comment, so.
Good.
I'll move for approval with the allowance of the executive director to make non-substantive changes.
Okay. Second?
I second that.
Wants it?
Ruben beat him to it.
Yes, he did. Okay.
Public comment. Seeing and hearing none.
Okay, the motion is by Harabedian to approve the December 15, 2017 meeting minutes with the changes made and the delegation to the EO for non-substantive changes. The second is by Sario. The vote, Mateki,
Yes.
Chan,
Yes.
Harabedian,
Yes.
Sario.
Yes.
4-0 motion passes. Okay, number 10, review and approval of the March 30th, 2018 board meeting minutes. So again, just going page by page, this was, again, also another strategic planning session, so the same caveat as the previous meeting applies. So any changes on page 1? Page 2? Page 3? And
There was a little bit of ambiguity for me in understanding some of the, so like looking at page 4, it says in parentheses included as agenda item number 7, and then in the body of it, it says and included in the discussion of objectives. Can you clarify?
Yeah, that was kind of a tough one because we, if memory serves, we had moved that up. We had sort of moved that ahead of, we sort of moved that ahead of number 7, or we wanted to review the previous objectives, what we had developed ahead of that, and then get into number 7. So I apologize, it's a little confusing. But basically, it was moved up. The objective development was moved up.
So agenda item 8 was discussed before number 7 or during number 7?
During number 7. That's
Okay.
kind of the hard part. So, I mean, we to be frank, we kind of jumped around a bit that day.
But I believe it was recommended by Solid, right?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the goal is just to, there's not anything wrong with that. If it was identified during the board meeting, okay, now we're going to jump to 7 and talk about 7 because it fits here, that's okay. But I'm just, for clarity purposes, getting it clear in the record so that if someone were reviewing it, they could understand what's going on. Looking at, like, for example, page 3 in the middle there, it says, as Ms. Cornell, as the moderator, moved up to the objective development from agenda item 8. So that just means that she began discussing agenda item number 8.
Yeah.
And then that's what agenda item 8 is referencing, that
Yeah.
discussion there during 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little confusing, but yeah.
So just perhaps recommend that, again, giving the executive officer authority to provide some clarity to the language as a part of, the technical non-substantive changes.
So that's it. Are there any changes or anything? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
We'll move. So I move to adopt move to approval March 30, 2018 board meeting minutes and authorize executive officer to do non-substantial changes for the minutes.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Convening seconds.
Public comment? Seeing and hearing none.
Okay. Motion is by Dr. Mateki to approve the April 13th, 28th, I'm sorry, no, March 30th. I've got too many minutes on me. March 30th, 2018 meeting minutes with the changes made, suggested, and then a delegation to the EO to make non-substantive changes. The second is by John Harabedian. The vote, Mateki,
Yes.
Chan,
Yeah.
Harabedian,
Yes.
Sario.
Yes.
4-0 motion carries. Okay. The final set of minutes is agenda item number 11, April 13th, 2018. This was the teleconference meeting to approve the board's sunset review response. So any changes on page 1? Okay. Page 2. Page 3.
Hearing no changes, is there a motion on the table?
I do. I motion to approve the board meeting on April 13th, 2018.
Okay.
Are you okay allowing the executive officer to make non-substantive and technical changes? We'll include that. Do we have a second? Mr. Kitman Chan seconds. Public comment? Seeing and hearing none.
Okay, the motion is by Ruben Osorio to approve the April 13th, 2018 meeting minutes with a delegation to the EO to make non-substantive changes. Kitman Chan seconds. The vote, Mateki?
Yes.
Chan?
Yes.
Bedian?
Yes.
Osorio?
Yes.
4-0, motion passes. Okay, that's it for the minutes. Thank you, members.
We're good?
So we're good?
Yep.
So we call for the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Once.
Recess. So we are finished today, so it's 3 o'clock currently, and we will finish for the day.
Well,
Recess.
the board will recess for today, and will reconvene tomorrow at 9 o'clock a.m. Here.
Go ahead and say that.
Yes. We will recess and reconvene tomorrow at 9 o'clock here.
And yes, at Handelary Hotel San Diego Tower Room.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we need to take a-
Handelary Hotel, San Diego. Call for the day.